People say hunger can make a person do things they will later regret. But that night, hunger almost killed 3 men. It was around 9:30 in the evening when 3 friends were traveling on a lonely road between 2 villages. The road was long and quiet. No streetlights, no houses nearby. Only the sound of crickets and the wind moving through the tall grass by the roadside. Inside the car were 3 young men, Kunal, Emeka, and Tund. They had been traveling for almost 6 hours after attending a business meeting in another town. Everyone in the car was tired, very tired. Tund, who was driving, rubbed his eyes and sighed. "My brothers, this journey is longer than I expected," he said. From the back seat, Emeka laughed weakly. "You are even complaining. My stomach has been crying for food for the past 2 hours. Kunal nodded in agreement. "That is true. We should have stopped somewhere earlier to eat, but the problem was simple. Every restaurant they passed earlier had already closed. And now they were stuck on a dark road with no place to eat." Suddenly Emeka leaned forward and spoke again. "If we don't see food soon, I might faint." Everyone laughed. But deep down, it was not really a joke. They were all extremely hungry. The car continued moving slowly along the empty road. Minutes passed. 10 minutes. 15 minutes. Still nothing. Then suddenly, Emeka sat up straight. "Wait. Wait." Tund looked at him through the mirror. "What happened?" Emeka sniffed the air. "Stop the car." Tund frowned. "Why?" Emeka leaned toward the window again and sniffed the air like a dog searching for something. "Can you smell that?" Kunal also leaned closer to the window. At first, nothing. Then suddenly, he smelled it too. Food. The smell was strong. Very strong. Spicy pepper soup. Fresh meat. Fried rice. The smell filled the air so much that it felt like the food was right beside them. Kunal's eyes widened. "My God, where is that coming from?" Tund slowed the car immediately. "Are you serious? There is food around here." The 3 men looked outside through the darkness. At first they saw nothing. Then suddenly, a small light appeared ahead of them. Very small, very dim, like the light from a lantern. As the car moved closer, they finally saw it. A small building standing alone, beside the road. The building looked old. The paint on the walls was peeling, and the wooden signboard hanging in front of it was almost broken. Tund slowed the car until it finally stopped. They all looked at the building quietly. Kunal was the first to speak. "Is that a restaurant?" Emeka didn't even wait for confirmation. He quickly opened the car door. "My brothers, I don't care what it looks like. I need food." Tund laughed. "You and your stomach." But when they stepped out of the car, the smell of the food became even stronger. It was almost impossible to ignore. The restaurant had 4 plastic chairs outside and 2 old wooden tables. But strangely, there were no customers. Not even one. The place was completely silent. Kunal folded his arms slowly. "This place looks strange." Tund looked around the empty road. "I agree. But where else will we find food at this time of the night?" Emeka had already started walking toward the door. "If you people want to stand outside and admire the darkness, you can stay there. I'm going inside." Kunal and Tund exchanged looks. Then they both followed him. As they reached the entrance, they noticed something strange. The door was slightly open, and inside the restaurant, a young woman stood near a large cooking pot. She was stirring the pot slowly with a long wooden spoon. Her back was facing them. The sound of the spoon hitting the pot echoed softly inside the quiet room. Toke, toke, toke. The smell coming from the pot was unbelievable. Emeka's stomach growled loudly. The woman suddenly stopped stirring. Slowly, she turned around, and when she faced them, she smiled. "Good evening," she said softly. Her voice was calm. Almost too calm. Welcome. For a moment, none of the three men spoke. The woman was beautiful. Very beautiful. Her dark skin shined in the lantern light. Her eyes were sharp but quiet, and her smile was gentle. Tund cleared his throat. Good evening, madam. Are you still open? The woman nodded slowly. Yes. Emeka immediately sat down on one of the chairs. Thank God. Kunal sat down too, but he still looked around the restaurant carefully. Something about the place made him uncomfortable. There were only 3 tables inside. The walls looked old. And strangely, there was no menu, no refrigerator, no other workers. Just the woman, standing beside the large pot, watching them. Please, Emeka said eagerly, what food do you have? The woman's smile widened slightly. I have something special tonight. She lifted the cover of the pot slowly. The smell that came out made all 3 men freeze. It was the richest, most delicious smell they had ever sensed. Even Kunal forgot his suspicion for a moment. What kind of food is that? He asked. The woman looked at them quietly. Then she said something that made the room suddenly feel colder. It is the kind of food people never forget. She placed the cover back on the pot. Then she added softly. Once they taste it, the 3 men laughed. That they didn't know something important. Something every villager around that road already knew. Something travelers rarely discovered until it was too late. Because that restaurant had a terrible secret. A secret hidden behind the kitchen door. And that night, Kunal, Emeka, and Tund were about to walk straight into it. Without knowing that their hunger had just led them into the most dangerous restaurant on that road. And by the time they discovered the truth, one of them might already be dead. For a few seconds after the woman spoke, the restaurant became quiet again. Only the sound of the boiling pot could be heard. Toke, toke, toke. The woman gently picked up the wooden spoon again and continued stirring the pot. Kunal leaned closer to Tund and whispered quietly, Does something about this place feel strange to you? Tund shrugged. My brother, everything looks strange because we are hungry. Emeka laughed loudly from the other side of the table. You people think too much. Just let the woman bring the food. The woman suddenly stopped stirring again. She looked at them with a calm expression. You must be very hungry. Emeka nodded immediately. Very hungry. The woman slowly walked to a small shelf near the wall and brought out 3 old plates. Then she placed them gently on the table. Kunal watched her carefully. Every movement she made was slow. Too slow. Almost like she had all the time in the world. Where are you coming from? She asked quietly. Tund answered. We are coming from Ogbede town. We had a business meeting there. The woman nodded. That is a long journey. Emeka rubbed his hands together. Yes, and we did not eat anything after afternoon. The woman walked back to the large pot again. Then she lifted the lid slowly. Steam rose into the air. The smell filled the entire room. It was so rich and powerful that the 3 men leaned forward at the same time. Kunal could not stop staring at the pot. What exactly is inside that soup? He asked. The woman smiled slightly. Something very special. She scooped the soup slowly into a large bowl. The soup was thick and dark. Pieces of meat floated inside it. Big pieces. But something about the meat looked strange. Kunal could not explain it. Maybe it was the shape. Or maybe it was just the lantern light. But he decided not to think too much about it. The woman brought the bowl to their table. Then she returned to the pot and served rice on the 3 plates. When she finished, she placed the plates in front of them. Enjoy your meal, she said softly. Emeka did not waste time. He grabbed a spoon immediately and dipped it into the soup. My brothers, he said excitedly. This food smells like heaven. He took a big bite. Then suddenly, his eyes widened. He froze. Kunal and Tund looked at him. What happened? Tund asked. Emeka slowly swallowed the food. Then he said something surprising. This is the best food I have ever eaten in my life. Tund laughed. You are exaggerating. But when Tund tasted the food too, his laughter stopped. His eyes widened just like Emeka's. My God! Kunal quickly tasted his own plate. And immediately he understood. The taste was unbelievable. Rich, spicy, perfect. Kunal had eaten in many restaurants before, but nothing had ever tasted like this. For a moment, all three men forgot how strange the place was. They just kept eating. Fast, very fast. The woman stood beside the kitchen wall watching them quietly. Her eyes moved from one man to another, almost like she was studying them. Emeka noticed something after a while. He looked up at her and smiled. Madam, why are you just standing there? Come and eat with us. The woman shook her head slowly. I already ate. Tund laughed. You must be a very good cook. The woman smiled again. Yes, people always say that. Kunal suddenly noticed something strange. Even though the woman claimed she had already eaten, there was no plate anywhere near her. Not on the counter. Not on the table. Not anywhere in the room. But before he could think about it too much, something else happened. A strange sound came from the back of the restaurant. Very soft. Almost like someone whispering. Kunal slowly stopped eating. Did you hear that? He asked. Emeka kept eating. Hear what? Kunal looked toward the back door near the kitchen. I think someone is there. The woman quickly spoke. There is no one there. Her voice sounded slightly different now. More serious. Kunal looked at her carefully. Are you sure? The woman nodded. Yes, but just as Kunal was about to continue eating, the sound came again. This time a little louder. It sounded like someone crying. Very weak. Very tired. Help! Kunal froze. He looked at Tund. You heard that, right? Tund nodded slowly. Yes, I heard it. Emeka finally stopped eating too. What is going on? Kunal stood up from his chair. The woman suddenly stepped forward. You should sit down, she said. Her voice sounded firmer now. The food will get cold, but Kunal was already walking toward the kitchen door. I just want to check something. The woman's smile slowly disappeared. No. Kunal stopped and looked at her. No? The woman stared at him. There is nothing there, but suddenly the weak voice came again from behind the door. Please, help! The three men looked at each other. Their hunger suddenly disappeared. The restaurant no longer felt warm. It felt cold. Very cold. Kunal slowly reached for the kitchen door, and as his hand touched the handle, the woman whispered quietly behind him. You should not open that door. Kunal slowly turned to look at her. Her face had changed. The gentle smile was gone. Her eyes now looked dark and serious. But it was too late. Kunal had already started opening the door. And what he was about to see would turn that simple dinner into the most terrifying night of their lives. Plates of food still on the table in the restaurant. You already ate my food. Her voice became softer. So it is too late to run. Kunal suddenly felt something strange in his body. His legs felt heavier. His head began spinning. The woman noticed it and smiled slowly. Yes, the food is already working. Emeka grabbed the wall to support himself. My head. Why do I feel like this? The woman's smile widened. Because now, you cannot escape. She stepped closer with the knife. And in that moment, Kunal realized something terrifying. They were trapped. The restaurant was not a restaurant. It was a trap. And the three of them had just walked straight into it. Kunal's head was spinning. His legs felt weak. The room was slowly turning blurry. The woman stood in front of them holding the knife, smiling quietly. You see, she said softly, nobody ever leaves my restaurant. Emeka tried to stand straight, but his body refused to obey him. You poisoned us. he said weakly. The woman laughed gently. Poison is too fast. She walked slowly toward them. I prefer something slower. Connell quickly looked around the room. He knew one thing. If they stayed there, they would die. The two women tied in the corner were already crying. Tund whispered to Connell, "We have to do something. Now." Connell forced himself to stay awake. His body was weak, but his mind was still working. Suddenly he noticed something on the floor beside the wall. A broken wooden chair leg. Quickly, Connell bent down and grabbed it. The woman noticed the movement immediately. Her smile disappeared. "You should not do that," she said. But before she could react, Connell used the little strength he had left and swung the wood toward the lantern light. Crash! The lantern fell to the ground. The room instantly became dark. Complete darkness. The woman screamed angrily. "You fools!" Connell shouted loudly. "Run!" Tund quickly began untying the ropes of the two women in the dark. Emeka held onto the wall, trying not to fall. The woman began swinging the knife wildly in the darkness. "You cannot escape!" she shouted. Connell managed to push past her in the darkness and ran toward the front door. Tund followed behind him with the two rescued women. Emeka struggled but forced himself to move. They finally burst through the restaurant door and ran outside into the night. The cold air hit their faces, but they did not stop running. Behind them, the woman came out of the restaurant screaming with rage. "Come back!" Her voice echoed across the empty road. But just at that moment, headlights appeared in the distance. A large truck was approaching the road. Connell ran into the middle of the road waving his hands. "Help! Help!" The truck driver slammed the brakes quickly. The driver jumped down from the truck in shock. "What is happening here?" Connell pointed toward the restaurant. "That woman, she kills people." The driver looked confused, but when he saw the two weak women and Emeka barely standing, he immediately called the police. Within an hour, the police arrived. They searched the restaurant. What they discovered shocked everyone. Inside the back room were many bones, clothes from missing travelers, old bags, shoes, even passports. The police later confirmed something terrible. For years, that woman had been feeding travelers on that lonely road, drugging them, killing them, and hiding their bodies. More than 20 people had disappeared on that road. No one ever knew what happened to them. Until that night. The woman was arrested immediately. The restaurant was destroyed the next week. Today, if you travel on that road, you will only see an empty piece of land. But the story still spreads across villages. People always warn travelers with one simple sentence: never eat in a strange restaurant on a lonely road. Because sometimes, the food is not the danger. The person cooking it is. Connell slowly pushed the kitchen door open. The wooden door made a long creaking sound. Creak. The small room behind the kitchen was dark. Very dark. Only a little light from the restaurant entered through the open door. At first, Connell could not see anything clearly. But he heard something. Breathing. Weak breathing. Like someone who was very tired. "Kay, help us," a weak voice whispered again. Connell's heart started beating faster. He stepped inside slowly. "Kay, who is there?" he asked. Behind him, Tund and Emeka stood up quickly and followed him. But the woman in the restaurant did not move. She only stood there quietly, watching. Connell moved a little deeper into the dark room. Then his eyes slowly adjusted to the darkness. And suddenly, he saw them. Two young women were sitting on the floor in the corner. Their hands were tied with rope. Their clothes were dirty. Their faces looked weak and tired. One of them looked up at Connell with tears in her eyes. "Please untie us," she begged softly. Connell felt cold fear run through his body. "What happened to you?" he asked. The second woman spoke with a shaking voice. You must leave this place now. Emeka frowned. Why? The first woman swallowed slowly before speaking. That woman in the kitchen. She is not normal. Tund looked confused. What do you mean she is not normal? The woman looked toward the kitchen door with fear. Then she whispered something that made Kunnal's heart skip a beat. She kills people. The room became silent. Emeka laughed nervously. That is not funny, but the woman did not smile. Her eyes were serious. She gives travelers food, but the food is drugged. Kunnal suddenly remembered how strange the soup tasted. How do you know this? He asked. The woman pointed to the floor beside her. Kunnal looked down. And when he saw it, his entire body froze. Bones, human bones, old bones, and some pieces of torn clothes. Kunnal stepped back in shock. This cannot be real. The second woman continued speaking quickly. We were traveling too. She gave us food, but we started feeling weak. She brought us here and tied us. Emeka's voice became shaky. What about the other people? The woman's eyes filled with tears. She killed them. At that moment, a shadow slowly appeared behind Kunnal. A quiet voice spoke from the doorway. I told you not to open that door. All four of them turned quickly. The woman from the restaurant was standing there. But now, she was holding a large kitchen knife. Her face looked completely different. The soft smile was gone. Her eyes were cold. Very cold. Kunnal felt his heart racing. Why are you doing this? He asked. The woman slowly stepped into the room. Her footsteps were calm, almost relaxed. Because people always come, she said quietly. Hungry travelers. She lifted the knife slightly. And nobody ever asks questions. Tund stepped backward. You are crazy. The woman tilted her head slowly. Maybe. Then she looked at the